I stood in the dusty shop that once belonged to my late uncle, my eyes taking in the faded shelves and forgotten trinkets that whispered secrets of a bygone era. At that very moment, I heard the sharp sound of laughter, Rachel's laughter. She stood by the counter, her head thrown back as if amused by some private joke, her words cutting deep despite the fragile calm in my heart. "Enjoy your inheritance of junk," she had sneered, her voice dripping with a venom I never thought I would taste. "My new boyfriend has a mansion and money." Each word felt like a deliberate stab at something I could not quite name, yet in that moment, anger did not rise as it should have. Instead, I managed a small, almost defeated smile and murmured, "Thank you." I could see the shock in her eyes. She expected devastation, tears, and desperate pleas for forgiveness, or even a cry for her to stay. But I was strangely empty, unresponsive to the cruelty of her farewell. With a quick motion, she snatched up her suitcase, slammed the door behind her, and walked away, leaving behind an echo of laughter and a deep, piercing void in my chest. I felt as if every step she took was erasing part of a shared past that I could never reclaim. That night, as the shop fell silent except for the creaking of old floorboards and the soft whisper of wind through broken windows, I remained. I took solace in the gentle act of dusting off my uncle's abandoned office, a small room cluttered with memories and mysteries. My hands, roughened by years of working with tools and lost hopes, brushed against a hidden drawer in the far corner. Something unusual caught my attention. With cautious curiosity, I pulled it open and found a small, antique key resting atop a folded, yellowed note. My heart quickened as I unfolded the fragile paper. The note was penned in my uncle's unmistakable handwriting, each stroke heavy with meaning and purpose. The words sent a shiver down my spine. "If you found this, you are ready. Follow the key and trust your instincts." I paused, the sound of my own breathing loud in the stillness of that neglected space. The note, the key, these were clues, remnants of a secret life my uncle had led, now left in my reluctant care. I felt as if the universe had conspired to deliver me this legacy, a mystery wrapped in the remnants of his past. As I held the cold metal of the key in my palm, its weight seemed to anchor me to a destiny I had never sought but now could not escape. I ran my fingers along its intricate design, each notch and curve a promise of secrets waiting to be unraveled. The shop around me seemed to lean in, as if listening to the silent conversation between memory and fate. In that long, heavy moment, I realized that nothing in my life would ever be the same again. The key was not just a tool. It was an invitation to step into a world of hidden truths, where every object in this neglected shop could tell a story, and every shadow might conceal a new beginning. I closed my eyes for a fleeting second, trying to gather my scattered thoughts, and when I opened them, I was ready. The laughter that had once filled the room with bitterness now echoed as a distant memory, drowned out by the pulsing call of mystery and destiny. I took a deep breath, and with the key still warm in my hand, I stepped further into the murk of the past, determined to follow the cryptic message and uncover the legacy my uncle had left behind. I clutched the old key tightly in my hand as I made my way back to the dusty office behind the shop. The faint scent of old paper and musty wood filled the air, and every step I took echoed like a quiet heartbeat in the silence. I searched every inch of that cramped room, my eyes straining to see any detail that might have been overlooked during all those years. Then, in the far corner of the office, I noticed a faint outline on the wall, a barely visible seam that seemed different from the rest. My heart pounded as I approached it, feeling the pull of something hidden, something that had been waiting just for me. I set the key against the outline, my hand trembling as I found a small keyhole concealed in the crevices of the old plaster. With a slow, deliberate motion, I turned the key. A sharp, metallic click rang out in the stillness, and the wall shuddered as a section slowly swung inward. Beyond the moving barrier lay a secret room, untouched by time and filled with the relics of a life I had only begun to understand. Dust motes danced in the slanting light as I stepped inside, my eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and trepidation. Every surface of the hidden room seemed to tell a story. Shelves lined the walls, each laden with gold coins that glimmered softly, ancient scrolls wrapped in faded cloth, and rare artifacts that whispered of distant lands and forgotten times. My gaze wandered to a pedestal standing proudly in the center of the room. Resting atop, it was an ornate box covered in strange symbols, its intricate designs inviting me to uncover its secrets. I felt as though I had been pulled into a mystery much larger than I could have ever imagined. Drawn by an irresistible urge, I reached out and ran my fingers along the cold surface of the box. As I did, I discovered a hidden compartment beneath it. There, almost as if it were placed there deliberately, lay an old leather-bound journal. The pages inside were filled with the familiar handwriting of my uncle, each word etched with care and hidden meaning. I flipped through the pages slowly, reading every line as if it were a letter meant only for me. The journal was more than just a record of his thoughts. It was a map, a guide, and a warning all rolled into one. Each entry deepened the mystery, making my pulse quicken with anticipation. My eyes stopped at the very last page where, in bold, almost desperate handwriting, were 6 words that made my stomach churn. You must find the heart's pieces. In that moment, every puzzle piece began to fall into place. My uncle had not simply been collecting old relics. He had been chasing something extraordinary, a legacy hidden in the folds of time and steeped in danger. The secret room, the artifacts, the ornate box, and now this journal. All of it pointed to a journey that would take me far beyond the quiet confines of our old shop. I stood in the dim light, feeling the weight of destiny on my shoulders. Each object in that secret room called out to me, urging me to look deeper, to trust in the hidden clues my uncle had left behind. It was as if the room itself was alive, its silence speaking volumes about the secrets it held. I slowly ran my fingers over the journal's cracked cover, knowing that its pages would guide me into a world of hidden treasures and ancient mysteries. In that quiet moment, surrounded by relics of the past, I felt a stirring of hope. The key in my hand, the journal in my grasp, and the secret room behind me all whispered of a future filled with adventure and the chance to unlock secrets that had long been buried. With a deep, steadying breath, I stepped further into that room, determined to follow every clue and uncover the hidden legacy my uncle had left behind, knowing full well that my life was about to change forever. I still remember that restless night after the secret room was revealed, a night when every sound and shadow held a hidden meaning. I had barely left the hidden chamber with the ornate box and my uncle's leather-bound journal when I felt a chill crawling along my spine. The echo of his parting words, "You must find the heart's pieces," resonated inside me like a solemn promise. As I stepped back into the main part of the shop, the familiar creaks of the old wooden floorboards seemed to whisper warnings that I was not alone. Every gust of wind outside carried an eerie hush, and every dark corner of the shop appeared to hide a secret. I made my way toward the front door, my mind reeling with unanswered questions. The cool night air brushed past me, stirring memories of quieter times before my life was upturned by this strange inheritance. Yet, something felt off. When I reached the door, I noticed that the lock, once a symbol of safety, bore deep, jagged scratches. It was as if someone had tried to force their way in, leaving behind a message meant only for me. My heart pounded harder, and a heavy dread settled over me like a thick fog. I knew that I was being watched. I paused and slowly turned around, scanning the darkened street beyond the glass of the shop's front window. In the flickering glow of a nearby street lamp, I caught a glimpse of a lone figure lingering on the sidewalk, a shadow that moved with a cautious, deliberate gait. Its presence sent a shiver through me, and for a long, tense moment, I wondered if this stranger was friend or foe. My mind raced. Could it be a rival treasure hunter, another seeker of the heart's pieces? Or was it someone connected to my uncle's long-hidden past? I had no answers, only the cold certainty that my discovery had stirred something dangerous. With my heart still hammering in my chest, I retreated back into the dusty confines of the shop, where I locked the door behind me with trembling hands. I settled into a rickety wooden chair near an old table and opened the journal once more, determined to decipher the cryptic notes scrawled in my uncle's familiar handwriting. The pages revealed a maze of hints, names, dates, and mysterious symbols that hinted at an ancient legacy and a world of secrets beyond my comprehension. I read and reread each line, trying to piece together a map that could lead me safely through this newfound labyrinth of danger and destiny. The soft sound of footsteps outside jolted me from my reverie, and I froze, every muscle tense with alertness. I could hear the faintest shuffle near the door, as if someone was circling the shop, testing the lock, or simply watching from the shadows. I clenched the journal close to my chest, feeling its weight as a reminder of the quest ahead. I wondered if my uncle had ever expected me to face such perils when he entrusted me with his secrets. Perhaps he, too, had once felt the terror of being stalked by unseen eyes and the pressure of a destiny thrust upon him. My thoughts swirled as I sat there, the quiet of the night broken only by the occasional creak of the old building and the distant murmur of a passing car. I could almost feel the presence of that mysterious watcher pressing against the thin veil of night, daring me to step outside and confront the unknown. Instead, I resolved to stay inside a little longer, gathering my courage and piecing together the scattered clues from the journal. I traced my finger over the faded ink, silently promising myself that I would follow every lead, even if it meant risking my life, to protect the legacy that my uncle had left behind. In that long, fragile moment of solitude, I realized that my journey was no longer just about uncovering hidden relics or solving old puzzles. It was a test of my will, a challenge to confront the darkness that threatened to overtake me. The scratch on the lock, the solitary figure outside, and the cryptic words in the journal all merged into one undeniable truth. I was being drawn into a mystery that would change everything. And with that understanding, I knew that there was no turning back. Every step forward would bring me closer to answers, and perhaps to danger, but I had to move ahead, no matter the cost. I clutched the ancient compass in my trembling hand, its surface cold and etched with mysterious symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light of my uncle's hidden room. The moment my fingers brushed its ornate metal, a surge of energy shot through my body, sending my heart racing and my mind into a whirl of thoughts and emotions. I remembered my uncle's hushed whispers about destiny and secrets that lay hidden beneath the layers of our seemingly mundane lives. The compass spun wildly for a few agonizing moments before settling, its needle pointing unwaveringly in one direction. This silent command was both terrifying and exhilarating, as if it were beckoning me to leave behind everything I once knew and embark on a journey into the unknown. Leaving the secret room, I stepped back into the cluttered shop with a new sense of purpose. The air felt charged, and every creak of the old wooden floor echoed the call of adventure that now thrummed through my veins. I carefully tucked the compass into my jacket pocket, feeling its pulse as if it shared my own heartbeat. With each deliberate step, memories of past doubts and quiet routines melted away, replaced by a burning curiosity to discover the long-hidden truth behind the heart of eternity, a mystery my uncle had guarded so zealously. I spent hours that first night poring over the ancient map found among the relics of the secret room. The fragile paper, yellowed by time, depicted distant lands and cryptic symbols that hinted at a secret waiting to be unveiled. In the soft glow of a single lamp, I traced the intricate lines with my finger, feeling as though the map itself was guiding me toward a destiny intertwined with my own. One particular mark, a ruined monastery deep in the Scottish Highlands, captured my attention, drawing a direct line from the steady pull of the compass to a place where history and myth converged. By dawn, I had made up my mind. I set out on the first leg of my journey, my car carrying me along winding roads that cut through ancient woodlands and mist-shrouded valleys. The landscape transformed with every mile. Rolling hills gave way to craggy cliffs and narrow passes flanked by towering trees. The steady hum of the engine blended with the natural chorus of rustling leaves and distant bird calls, each sound reinforcing the quiet determination that now filled me. Every turn on the road felt charged with meaning, as if I were following footsteps laid out by time itself. I recalled my uncle's parting words, "Follow the key and trust your instincts." Now, as the compass's needle held steadfast, I trusted that inner voice guiding me toward the relic that promised both wonder and peril. The road was not without its challenges. I encountered narrow stretches along steep cliff edges, where the drop below was shrouded in swirling mists and the silence was broken only by the rush of wind. In those moments of solitude and quiet danger, I found strength in the simple truth that my journey was more than a search for lost treasures. It was a quest for meaning, a passage into the unknown where every moment held the potential for transformation. Under a star-punctured sky during a brief pause at a lonely roadside rest, I sat silently reflecting on the path ahead. The compass, resting securely in my pocket, seemed to emit a gentle, reassuring warmth. Its quiet pulse matched the rhythm of my own heart, forging a connection between the present and the promise of ancient secrets waiting to be discovered. As I gazed upward, the endless expanse of the night sky filled me with a deep sense of both wonder and resolve. With the break of dawn, the horizon blushed with hues of lavender and soft gold. I knew that today, the journey would gain new momentum, carrying me ever closer to that fabled monastery and the secrets it harbored. Clutching the compass tightly, I stepped into my car and drove forward, leaving behind the familiar and embracing the thrilling uncertainty of the road. Each mile brought me closer to a destiny written long ago, a path paved by mysteries and the silent, enduring promise of the heart's power. I arrived in Scotland under a sky heavy with gray clouds and a biting chill that made every breath feel like a struggle. The ancient monastery, perched on a rugged cliff overlooking a turbulent sea, loomed before me like a relic from a forgotten time. Its stone walls, weathered and crumbling, told stories of ages past, each crack and crevice a silent witness to centuries of hardship and mystery. I stepped through the heavy, creaking door, where the cold, stale air of the interior embraced me like an unwelcome ghost. Inside, narrow corridors stretched out into darkness, lit only by the faint, wavering light that seeped through shattered windows. Every footstep I took echoed along the stone floor, mingling with my own anxious heartbeat and the distant sound of wind howling outside. Clutching my uncle's worn journal, its pages filled with cryptic sketches and notes about the heart of eternity, I let its faded words guide me deeper into the labyrinthine passages of the monastery. The journal's instructions pointed me toward a secret hidden within these ancient walls, a secret that pulsed with danger and possibility. As I moved through twisting passageways, the oppressive air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to whisper long-forgotten secrets. The atmosphere was heavy, and every creak of the old building heightened my senses, making it feel as if I were being watched by unseen eyes. After what seemed like an eternity wandering through narrow halls, I finally discovered a secluded chamber at the heart of the monastery. In the center of the room stood a hidden altar, carved from stone and adorned with intricate patterns worn smooth by time. Resting atop the altar was a leather-bound book whose cover was cracked and edges frayed. Its pages brimmed with detailed sketches and writings chronicling the mysteries of the heart of eternity. The book exuded an aura of ancient power, a silent promise of knowledge and danger intertwined. I stepped closer, drawn by an irresistible compulsion to understand the secrets that had so haunted my uncle's past. Just as I reached out to caress the book's worn cover, a sudden movement in the darkness made me freeze. Out of the murky shadows emerged a hooded man, his eyes glinting with a sharp, calculating light beneath the low brim of his hood. His voice, deep and measured, broke the silence with a single, chilling command. "You shouldn't be here." In that split second, before I could utter a word, he lunged at me with alarming speed. The force of his attack set off a hidden mechanism within the ancient structure. The entire monastery trembled as if it were awakening from a long slumber. Stones began to fall, and the floor beneath me cracked open, revealing a yawning chasm shrouded in darkness. In the chaos, my eyes caught a glimmer of light emanating from the depths of the newly revealed chamber. Amid the swirling dust and falling debris, I saw it, a shard pulsing with a soft, eerie glow. With a surge of desperate determination, I leaped forward and grasped the cool, smooth surface of the shard. The moment my fingers closed around it, a powerful energy coursed through my body. Visions overwhelmed my mind. Raging fires, scenes of utter destruction, and flashes of an immense, mysterious power that both terrified and mesmerized me. In the midst of this sensory onslaught, a single, ghostly whisper echoed in my thoughts. "It is not meant to be whole." For a long, suspended moment, Time seemed to slow as I stood there, the shard pulsing steadily in my grasp like a heartbeat. The hooded man halted his advance and observed me with an unreadable expression, while the very walls of the monastery shuddered in response to the tumult. The leather-bound book on the altar lay forgotten as the magnitude of what had just occurred sank in. In that heartbeat of eternity, I realized that my life was irrevocably altered. The shard was not merely a fragment of an ancient relic. It was a beacon of fate, a tangible piece of the heart of eternity that held the key to mysteries and dangers beyond my wildest imaginings. Gathering every ounce of courage, I took a hesitant step forward. I knew that the quest for the remaining pieces of the heart was now a race against time, a perilous journey that would test my resolve and challenge. The cold, misty silence of the monastery, the fallen stones, and even the oppressive weight of destiny itself bore witness to this turning point. Clasping the shard tightly, I steeled myself to venture deeper into the unknown recesses of the ancient building, aware that every moment could bring further revelations or greater perils. With the shard's quiet pulse guiding me like the beat of a hidden drum, I moved forward into the darkness, determined to unravel the legacy my uncle had entrusted to me, even if it meant facing the most unfathomable dangers that lay ahead. I raced through the cold stone corridors of the ruined monastery, my heart pounding so fiercely I was sure the sound would alert any lurking enemy. I barely had time to catch my breath when the hooded man reappeared from the dark recesses of the building. His eyes, filled with a cruel determination, locked onto mine as he advanced steadily. I clutched the shard, the first piece of the heart, tightly in my hand, its cool glow a silent promise of both power and peril. In that moment, I realized that my life had been irreversibly changed, and I was now entangled in a dangerous pursuit that left no room for retreat. I bolted out of the monastery through a narrow, crumbling exit, the hooded man in hot pursuit. His presence was like a shadow that clung to my every step, and with each passing second, I felt the weight of his intent pressing closer. I managed to escape into the murky twilight of the Scottish countryside, where the dense fog swallowed the path ahead. I slowed only when I reached a hidden alley behind the ancient structure, desperate to catch my breath and gather my thoughts. It was there, in the relative safety of solitude, that I first heard a low, measured voice behind me. Marcus Vale. The voice stated, cold and unwavering. I turned sharply to see a man emerging from the gloom, a man whose reputation had preceded him. Marcus Vale was a ruthless treasure hunter, known for his relentless pursuit of rare relics, and he was not one to let obstacles, or unwilling heirs like me, stand in his way. His eyes glinted with the promise of violence and greed as he stepped forward. I felt a surge of dread, but also a strange resolve. I had spent years living in the shadow of my uncle's secrets, and now, faced with this living embodiment of greed, I could not falter. Barely managing to form a response, I recalled the wisdom of Dr. Adrian Cole, the historian who had become my reluctant mentor. I had turned to him as soon as I clutched the shard, a desperate bid to understand the symbols and the legacy hidden in my uncle's journal. Dr. Cole's grim analysis had connected the mysterious symbols to a long-forgotten sunken temple in Greece, where the second piece of the heart was rumored to lie hidden. His warning echoed in my mind. If the second piece was indeed there, I would not be the only one seeking it. Marcus Vale's presence now confirmed that I was treading a treacherous path. A race against time, and a rival whose only aim was to seize the power of the heart for himself. Marcus took a step closer, his gaze never leaving mine, and I knew that words would soon give way to a violent clash. With my heart hammering in my chest, I bolted again, determined to put as much distance as possible between us. My feet pounded against the uneven cobblestones as I dashed through narrow lanes and over crumbling walls. The sound of Marcus's heavy steps echoed behind me, a grim reminder that every second counted. In the midst of the chase, I could only think of Dr. Cole's solemn advice and the cryptic maps that promised further clues hidden in the depths of the Mediterranean. I needed to reach a safe haven where I could plan my next move, and that thought propelled me forward even as exhaustion threatened to overtake me. I found refuge in an abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of a small village, its broken windows and creaking door offering little protection from the storm of my thoughts. Once inside, I collapsed onto a threadbare cot, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away, leaving me with a cold, numbing dread. I knew Marcus would not relent, and that he was as relentless in his quest as I was in my desperate search for answers. The shard in my hand pulsed softly, a constant reminder of the legacy I had inherited and the dangerous journey that lay ahead. As I sat in the dim light of the farmhouse, I allowed myself a brief moment to process the enormity of my situation. I was now locked in a dangerous pursuit, not just for ancient relics and hidden treasures, but for the truth that could shatter or save everything I once held dear. Every decision from this point forward was a matter of life and death, and I could only hope that the lessons of the past and the clues left by my uncle would be enough to guide me through the perils that Marcus Vale and his ruthless ambitions had set in motion. The chase had only just begun, and I realized with a sinking heart that there was no turning back from the dangerous road ahead. I arrived in Greece with a heavy heart and a mind full of questions. The journey had taken me far from the familiar landscapes of Scotland, and now I stood on a rocky shore where ancient whispers mingled with the relentless crashing of waves against jagged cliffs. I had hired Luca, a local diver with a steady hand and quiet confidence, to guide me to a sunken temple that legends claimed housed the second shard of the heart. As the boat sliced through the dark water, the air was thick with salt and silent anticipation, and every ripple seemed to carry hints of secrets buried in the deep. Luca's calm eyes surveyed the horizon as he readied his diving gear, and with a simple nod, he motioned for me to join him in the small inflatable dinghy. I clutched the worn leather pouch containing my first shard, a reminder of the dangerous journey I had already endured. Feeling its cool weight against my chest as we moved steadily away from the shore, the sea grew eerily calm as we neared the coordinates marked on the faded map my uncle had left behind. Slowly, the outline of a vast, forgotten structure emerged from the depths, a temple swallowed by time and the relentless pull of the ocean. Its crumbling stone columns, softened by centuries of water, rose like silent sentinels guarding mysteries long concealed. My heart pounded as Luca guided the dinghy toward the submerged ruin. Once we reached the temple's entrance, he secured our vessel and helped me into his diving suit. The transition from the warm air above to the cool, shadowed world beneath was jarring, and as I submerged, the light of the sun dimmed to a faint glow filtered through the water. We swam along a narrow passageway into the temple's interior, where the silence was profound and every movement echoed in the still water. Beams of light broke through gaps in the stone ceiling, illuminating a circular chamber that held a quiet majesty. At the center of the room, a stone pedestal supported the second shard of the heart. Its surface shimmered with an unearthly glow, pulsing softly as though it possessed a heartbeat of its own. The sight of the relic filled me with both wonder and a deep, inexplicable dread. I moved slowly, every muscle tensed with caution, ready for whatever might emerge from the temple's dark recesses. Just as I extended my hand toward the pedestal, a sudden ripple in the water startled me. From the shadow of a crumbling wall, a serpent-like creature began to emerge. Its scales glistened with a luminous sheen, and its eyes burned with a fierce, otherworldly light. The creature's sinuous body moved with silent precision, and for a long, breathless moment, I found myself frozen in terror as I stared into its glowing gaze. Instinct and survival surged through me. I recoiled sharply as the creature lunged with astonishing speed. The water churned around me, and panic clutched at my heart. In that desperate moment, I remembered the ancient method described in my uncle's journal, a way to create a resonant sound that might scare even the most relentless foe. My eyes darted around until I spotted a metal rod wedged among debris near a fallen column. With trembling hands, I seized it and struck a nearby stone pillar with all my might. The blow reverberated through the water in a deep, resounding boom that filled the chamber and startled the creature. It recoiled sharply, its advance halted by the sudden noise. Seizing the moment, I plunged forward and grasped the second shard from its pedestal. The relic's glow intensified in my hand, a silent confirmation that I had secured another piece of the heart. The guardian serpent circled in confusion for several agonizing seconds before slipping silently back into the dark recesses of the temple. Luca's signal broke the tense silence, and together we began our ascent through the cool, shadowy water. The journey upward felt endless as I clung tightly to the shard, its otherworldly pulse a steady reminder of the legacy I now carried. Breaking through the surface, gasping in the fresh air, I was met by Luca's wide, questioning eyes. "What the hell was that?" he murmured, his voice thick with shock and awe. I could only shake my head, still reeling from the encounter with the guardian serpent, a creature that seemed to have risen straight from myth to protect secrets meant to remain hidden. As our boat rocked gently on the calm sea, I sat in a moment of heavy silence, the shard pulsing softly in my grasp. I knew that this relic, along with all those yet to be found, would lead me deeper into a mystery filled with peril and wonder, a mystery that promised to reshape my life forever. I drove through the rain-soaked streets of Athens with a heavy heart and a sense of foreboding that refused to let go. The night had been long and full of restless memories, and as I stared out at the blurred city lights, I knew that the chase was far from over. With 2 shards of the heart securely hidden away, I had finally traced the location of the third, a secret monastery in Nepal, far from the modern chaos of Europe. But before I could even consider a moment's reprieve, Marcus Vale reappeared in my life like a dark specter. This time, he was not alone. His mercenaries, cold and ruthless, swarmed the narrow back alleys of Athens. I ducked into a narrow doorway, my breath quick and ragged as I pressed my back against the cold stone wall, listening to their heavy boots echo in the distance. I clutched the pouch containing the shards, each piece pulsating with a mysterious, almost tangible power. I remembered my uncle's fading words and the long nights spent poring over his journal. I had thought I was ready for this dangerous quest, yet nothing could have prepared me for the betrayal that was about to unfold. As I navigated the labyrinthine streets, trying to lose my pursuers in the maze of ancient ruins and modern buildings, my mind raced with questions. What drove Marcus Vale to such lengths? Was it the promise of power, or was there something more personal in his relentless pursuit of the heart? The answers remained as murky as the midnight sky over Athens. I finally found a safe haven in a small, run-down safe house on the outskirts of the city, a crumbling apartment that reeked of dampness and lost hope. I sank onto a threadbare chair, trying to steady my pounding heart and piece together my next move. It was there, in the suffocating silence of that dark room, that I heard the footsteps again. The sound was deliberate, echoing down the hall as if the walls themselves were betraying me. I raced to the window and peered out, my eyes straining in the gloom. There, standing under the weak glow of a street lamp, was Marcus Vale, his face obscured by shadows and a cold smile that promised nothing but destruction. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. I recalled how, just a few days before, I had trusted him, believing that his knowledge of the ancient relics might help me piece together my uncle's scattered clues. But trust is a fragile thing when ambitions clash. In that moment, I felt the heavy weight of my loss. Before I could react, the door burst open, and masked men stormed in, their intentions as clear as the glint in their eyes. They overpowered me with brutal efficiency, and in the ensuing struggle, I felt a cold, metallic sensation as one of them snatched the pouch from my grasp. The shards, symbols of my legacy and my only hope of uncovering the truth behind the heart, were ripped away from me. I fought desperately, throwing punches and yelling in vain protest, but the numbers were against me. Amid the chaos, Marcus Vale stepped forward, his eyes burning with a fierce intensity as he surveyed his ill-gotten prize. His betrayal was complete. He had turned against me at the very moment when the pieces of the puzzle should have come together. I watched in disbelief as he gathered the shards, each one pulsating with an eerie light, and then he vanished into the night with his mercenaries in tow. Left alone in that dark, suffocating room, I sank to the floor in despair. The room, once a refuge, now felt like a tomb holding the remnants of my shattered trust and dreams. My heart pounded in my ears as I struggled to accept the harsh reality. I had been betrayed by someone I had once considered an ally. But even as the betrayal stung, a deeper resolve began to kindle within me. I remembered my uncle's voice, urging me to protect our legacy at all costs, and I knew that giving up was not an option. In the stillness of that moment, as the rain drummed against the window and my breath came in ragged gasps, I vowed that I would reclaim what was stolen. The journey was far from over, and though Marcus Vale's treachery had struck a devastating blow, I was determined to press on. I would follow the clues, trust in the memory of my uncle, and journey to Nepal to find the hidden monastery that held the promise of the third shard. Even in the face of betrayal, my quest for the truth of the heart burned brighter than ever, fueling a determination that refused to be extinguished, no matter how dark the night became. I found myself deep in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, where the humid air pressed against my skin and the ancient trees whispered secrets of a past long forgotten. I had tracked Marcus Vale through winding jungle paths and murky streams until I arrived at a hidden clearing, a place that held the final piece of the heart. Before me, in a ruined stone structure overtaken by vines and moss, Marcus stood beside a weathered pedestal. On that pedestal lay the final shard, its surface pulsing with a soft, eerie glow that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. As I watched from behind a clump of ferns, my pulse quickened. Marcus's eyes were fixed on the relic, and his expression shifted from determination to something like despair. I could see the final piece clicking into place with the other shards he had collected, forming a whole that shimmered with an otherworldly light. For a long, heart-stopping moment, the jungle fell silent except for the distant call of unseen creatures and the rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. The assembled heart radiated power that rippled through the air, and I felt the earth tremble underfoot. The light it emitted was both beautiful and terrifying, casting shifting shadows on the crumbling walls of the ancient ruin. Then, as if the relic had awakened a force beyond human control, the ground began to shake violently. The once still clearing erupted with a roar as the power of the heart surged outward, its energy shaking the very foundations of the jungle. Marcus's scream rang out, a cry of agony and shock, as he staggered backwards. I knew in that moment that the heart was not a source of salvation, but a curse that brought only destruction. The air around me buzzed with raw energy, and every instinct screamed that nothing good could come from such concentrated power. I recalled the countless nights I had spent poring over my uncle's journal, absorbing his warnings and piecing together clues that now led me to this fateful crossroads. His gentle voice and determined eyes had once given me strength, and now, facing the reality of the heart's terrible power, I realized that I alone held the choice to change its destiny. With my heart pounding and hands trembling, I stepped out of the shadows. Each footstep felt heavy as I advanced slowly toward the pedestal, the light of the heart reflecting in my eyes. Marcus, still reeling from the shock, tried to regain control, but the assembled relic pulsed with an intensity that threatened to consume us both. I could feel its energy tugging at my very soul, as if urging me to harness its power, yet my instincts screamed that its power was a poison meant to corrupt. I knew that if I allowed it to remain whole, the curse would spread far beyond this ruined temple, endangering everything I held dear. Time seemed to slow as I reached out a shaking hand toward the heart. In that charged moment, every lesson from my past, every word of warning from my uncle, and every ounce of courage I possessed converged into a single, decisive thought. I could not let Marcus, nor anyone else, become a slave to this ancient curse. I had to end its cycle of pain and destruction. As I stood before the relic, the jungle around me roared with a rising crescendo of natural fury, a final, desperate warning from nature itself. I raised my hand, and, with a deep, steadying breath, I grasped the assembled heart. In that instant, a blinding flash of light exploded around us, and the raw, untamed energy surged through my veins like a tidal wave. The very ground beneath us cracked and splintered, and the oppressive force of the heart pressed upon my chest. Marcus's eyes widened in disbelief as the relic's light grew impossibly bright. Without a second thought, I made my choice. I pulled back with all my strength, releasing the heart from my grasp so that it could crash onto the cold, hard stone of the pedestal. The impact was immediate and cataclysmic. The heart shattered into countless fragments, its searing light splintering into the dark canopy above and fading into nothingness. A deep, resonant silence fell over the clearing as the tremors subsided. Marcus sank to his knees, his anguished cry swallowed by the hushed jungle, while I stood there, heart heavy with loss and relief. I had chosen to destroy the relic rather than allow its cursed power to corrupt our world. In that moment, I understood that my journey had never been about gaining strength from the relic. It was about protecting the legacy my uncle had left behind, even if it meant sacrificing what many would call power. As I gazed upon the scattered shards and the ruined pedestal, the weight of my choice settled upon me. I knew that life would never be the same, and the scars of this day would mark me forever. Yet, I also felt a quiet resolve, a promise that I would honor my uncle's memory and guard against the lure of dangerous power, no matter the cost. I had never felt so small and yet so determined in all my life. The chaos of the ruins and the echo of Marcus's screams still lingered in the heavy air around me. I stood among the scattered remnants of the heart, a powerful relic that had promised so much but brought only ruin. The blast of its shattered light had almost consumed me, but in that final moment I made a choice. I chose to destroy the heart, to break its cursed hold forever, even if it meant my own soul would be marked by the loss of its power. I could feel the cold stone beneath my feet tremble as the shards of the relic lay scattered in every direction. The energy that had once pulsed like a living thing was now quiet, and the heavy silence that followed spoke louder than any cry of agony. As I slowly regained my senses in the aftermath, I turned to see the ruin around me begin to collapse. The temple, which had once stood as a silent guardian of secrets, now crumbled into dust and echoes. Every stone that fell was a reminder of the danger the heart had brought into our world. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of all that had happened. Memories of my uncle, his gentle guidance and firm belief in protecting our legacy flooded my mind. I recalled the long nights spent reading his journal and the promise in his eyes when he spoke of treasures that were more than wealth. They were truths that had to be guarded. With each passing moment, the chaos grew. The ground shook, and I knew that nature itself was rebelling against the cursed relic. I could no longer stand by and let this force endanger everything I loved. I raised my hand, and in that moment of clarity, I felt the strength of my resolve. I had to make things right. The power that Marcus Vale had sought, the power that threatened to corrupt and destroy, was not meant for any one man. Clenching my jaw, I stepped forward, determined to seal away the darkness that had tainted the heart. I gathered the shards carefully, avoiding the dangerous remnants of their energy, and with a steady hand, I cast them into a deep, hidden chasm revealed by the collapsing temple. As I watched the fragments vanish into the abyss, a wave of relief washed over me. The relic was no longer whole. Its cursed promise was broken. In that quiet moment after the chaos, I realized that my journey was not just about a relic, but about understanding my own heart. The legacy of my uncle was not in the cursed object itself, but in the lessons he had taught me about love, loss, and the courage to do what is right. I thought of Rachel, her laughter that once cut deep, and wondered if somewhere, beyond the pain and betrayal, there might be a path back to forgiveness and new beginnings. The ruins of the temple slowly gave way to nature's reclaiming touch as vines and earth began to cover the scars of the past. I knew the world was healing, and in that healing, I saw hope. I walked for hours under the gentle warmth of the emerging sun, each step taking me further away from the horrors of the ruined temple. The forest whispered its own stories as I passed. The rustle of leaves and the murmur of distant waters created a soft, natural hymn. I sensed my uncle's spirit in every gentle breeze, urging me to keep moving and to find meaning in every hardship. I recalled his kind voice and steady gaze, and the wisdom he left behind in his journal, which filled me with a quiet strength. He had once told me that every treasure in life comes with a price, and that the true worth of an inheritance is measured not in riches but in the lessons learned along the way. My thoughts turned to Marcus Vale, a man whose greed had nearly torn apart the delicate balance of fate. In his eyes, I saw not only ambition but a desperate hunger for control over forces never meant to be mastered. His betrayal was a harsh lesson in the cruelty that can arise when power is pursued without wisdom. Yet, in that betrayal, I found clarity. I realized that my journey was not about competing for power, but about choosing the right path for the future. The relic was a symbol of the eternal struggle between greed and the human spirit, and by destroying it, I had chosen hope over despair. As the hours passed, I began to see the beauty hidden in the aftermath of chaos. The broken stones and fallen relics, once symbols of ancient power, now lay still, bathed in the soft glow of the morning light. They reminded me that even the most powerful curses can be undone by a single act of courage. With each step, I felt the weight of the past lift from my shoulders, replaced by a lightness of spirit I had not felt in years. I knew my journey would continue through trials and tribulations, yet I would face them with the strength of my convictions and the memory of my uncle's love. Now, as I enter a small village at the edge of the forest, I carry not only the pain of betrayal and loss, but also the hope of a future where truth and love prevail over darkness. Every act of kindness here reinforces my belief that even in a world filled with shadows, there is always a glimmer of light waiting to be embraced. My inheritance was never a curse. It was a reminder that true power lies in the choices we make, even when the world around us crumbles.
I hope you enjoyed this thrilling journey. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? Let me know in the comments below. Your feedback inspires more epic tales.